How Paris turned me from a nice person into a complete Karen. Before I moved to Paris a couple of years ago, I was a normal person. I was pleasant. I wasn't on high alert all the time. My name is Claire, and this is my story of how living in Paris transformed me from a cheerful American into someone I barely recognize, though I'm not entirely sure if that's a bad thing anymore. I remember the day I arrived at Charles de Gaulle Airport, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, clutching my acceptance letter for a position at a prestigious marketing firm in the 8th arrondissement. The customs officer, Marcel, as I would later learn his name during our many subsequent unpleasant encounters, barely glanced at my paperwork before stamping it with such force I thought he might break the desk. When I smiled and said merci, he looked at me as if I'd just suggested we should put pineapple on pizza. That should have been my first warning. Shortly after moving here, my attitude has progressively declined because I have to deal with French people. My transformation wasn't immediate, it was more like a slow-cooking pot of frustration, simmering with each passing day until it finally boiled over. Unfortunately, I was not able to hang on to my sweet nature, as each encounter with these moody lunatics has made me more and more like them. I am so mad at myself for this demise. My apartment in the Marais district seemed perfect at first. The real estate agent, Sylvie, had assured me it was très calm, very quiet. What she failed to mention was that directly below my window was what I now call the Great Parisian Social Experiment, a narrow intersection where cars, motorcycles, bicycles, pedestrians, and off-leash dogs all converge in a daily dance of chaos. Case in point, they do not know how to walk down the street, they yield for no one, not the elderly or mothers, injured etc., they walk directly into people, and me, every day, all day long. There's this one particular stretch of sidewalk on Rue des Rosiers where I swear the locals treat it like their personal bowling alley, with tourists and expatriates as the pins. If I move to the side, I swear they will move to the same side just to play sidewalk chicken. I remember distinctly the day I snapped. It was a Tuesday, and Madame Dubois from the apartment above mine had just finished watering her window boxes, letting the excess water cascade onto my freshly washed hair as I left for work. Already irritated, I encountered what I now call the Great Wall of French people, a group of 5 locals walking shoulder to shoulder on the narrow sidewalk, moving at the pace of escargot, completely oblivious to anyone trying to pass. Eventually, I started doing the same shit. If they aren't going to move, I'm not going to either. They don't hold open doors for the next person, etc. It's relentless. I've become what I call a sidewalk warrior. I've perfected the art of the Parisian stride, shoulders squared, eyes forward, walking with the determination of someone who has a baguette emergency. My mother would be horrified. The drivers of cars, motorbikes and bicycles are crazy. They have no respect for human life. There's this delivery guy on his motorbike, Jean-Pierre, I named him that after seeing him nearly kill 3 pedestrians in 1 week, who treats the sidewalk like his personal expressway. They will drive so close and fast to people on narrow street sidewalks. They will act like they are going to hit you, and I've seen them hit people before. One morning, I witnessed Jean-Pierre playing chicken with an elderly woman carrying groceries. He swerved at the last second, leaving her clutching her baguette like a weapon. The next day, I saw him do the same to a group of American tourists who were too busy taking selfies to notice death approaching on 2 wheels. It is unhinged behavior. I want to go ballistic on these people, but I hold myself back 95% of the time. In the grocery store, they give 0 personal space. My local Monoprix has become a daily battlefield. If they see someone coming down an aisle, they will not move until the person asks them to. They do not anticipate anyone else's movement and have no consideration for others. There's this one woman, I call her Madame Cheese Block, because she always manages to block the entire cheese section while contemplating her camembert choices for what feels like hours, who has elevated this to an art form. Of course, this isn't all French people in Paris, but it is certainly most of them. Don't be fooled. They have this reputation for a reason. The generalization of their rudeness is generally true. It is a pervasive cultural issue. My colleague Thomas is one of the few exceptions. He actually apologized once after bumping into me in the office kitchen. I nearly fainted from shock. They are also obsessed with having their dogs off-leash. At least 50% of the dogs I see in Paris are off-leash and have no business being off-leash, are not properly trained and disturb others. There's this one regular at my local cafe, Francois, who brings his massive German Shepherd, Bonaparte, yes, really, everywhere. Bonaparte has all the training of a squirrel on espresso, yet Francois insists he's très bien élevé, very well behaved. Multiple times, I have gone into restaurants and coffee shops and seen dogs off-leash inside these establishments. Last week, I was trying to enjoy my croissant at Café de Flore when Bonaparte decided my table looked like an interesting place to investigate. Francois just smiled and shrugged, saying il est amical, he's friendly, as his dog drooled on my newspaper. All of this to say, I am mad at myself for letting myself decline into this state where I am matching the energy of these people. I have even become some sort of Karen and I say things to people in the street like hello / bonjour. Right before they are about to run into me. I've developed what I call my preemptive strike technique, a loud, sarcastic bonjour. That serves as both a warning and a judgment. A car nearly hit my dog, Max, in a crosswalk. I had the green, and I absolutely lost my shit, yelling at her through her car window, "You're going to effing kill someone, you psycho." The driver, a woman in her 50s wearing more Chanel than a boutique display, had the audacity to roll her eyes and mutter something about Les Américains. It's not a harmless mistake. It is the repetitive nature of not giving a shit about anyone else but themselves. I have started getting onto people with their dogs off leash. Where is your leash? Why are you in a cafe with an untrained dog without a leash? Have respect for other people. Last month, I had a full-blown argument with a man whose Yorkie was terrorizing children outside a patisserie. He told me to mind my own business. I told him his dog had worse manners than a caffeinated raccoon. Aggressive, unsocialized dogs at cafes, growling and lunging towards people, and the owner saying in French, "Oh, he's nice," and I'll just be like, really? He seems super duper nice, like he needs a muzzle. There's this one particular incident that still makes my blood boil, a chihuahua named Petit Prince. I know because his owner screamed it approximately 47 times, tried to bite my ankle while I was ordering coffee. The owner's response? He's just protecting his territory. The territory being, apparently, the entire city of Paris. They litter. Oh, how they litter. I want to say, really? You're going to throw your trash on the ground? I've watched people finish their cigarettes and flip them into the Seine as if it's their personal ashtray. The Seine, which has survived revolutions, world wars, and tourists, is apparently no match for Parisians with cigarette butts. The men feel comfortable peeing on the street in broad daylight. I want to say you're disgusting. Find a bathroom, you lazy loser. There's this one corner near my apartment that I've dubbed the unofficial gentleman's room because of how frequently it's used as an impromptu urinal. One evening, I watched in horror as a man in a full business suit, briefcase in hand, casually relieved himself against a wall while having a conversation on his AirPods. They do not care. I've gotten in more heated public exchanges here than in the rest of my life, all my years combined, and they always push back. Last week, I had 3 separate arguments before noon. The first was with a cyclist who decided the sidewalk was a better option than the perfectly good bike lane. The second was with a woman who let her child throw an entire baguette at pigeons right in front of my building. The third was with a man who was smoking directly under a no-smoking sign at the metro station. They are territorial, egotistical maniacs. There are many French people I adore, one-on-one, but I do feel almost like I'm going to battle every time I walk down the street. My daily commute has become a strategic military operation. I've mapped out routes to avoid the worst offenders, the aggressive scooter gang that hangs out near the metro, the serial litterers who congregate outside the Tabak, and the various off-leash dog owners who treat the neighborhood like their personal dog park. I've never felt this living in any other city, except maybe on occasion when French tourists were around. Even New York, with all its reputation for rudeness, feels like a gathering of etiquette experts compared to Paris. At least in New York, the rudeness is honest and straightforward. Here, it's elevated to an art form, wrapped in a layer of sophistication that makes it somehow more infuriating. The other day I calmly, and kindly, told a guy, "You cannot ride your motorbike on the sidewalk," and a French man came up behind me and told me to shut up. This guy, wearing what looked like head-to-toe Hermes, because of course he was, actually revved his engine at me while standing still on the sidewalk. When I pointed out the obvious danger, a passing local, who I've seen literally kick pigeons, told me to mind my own business. Maybe I am a big-ass Karen now, but I don't care. Don't ride your motorcycle on a closed, narrow sidewalk just because the road is closed for construction. Go around, it's dangerous. You could hit a small child or elderly person. Or perfectly healthy adult. Coming around the corner. Just yesterday, I witnessed a perfect storm of Parisian chaos. Picture this: a man walking his off-leash Great Dane while smoking and talking on his phone, a delivery cyclist using the sidewalk as his personal Tour de France training ground, and a group of locals taking up the entire sidewalk while having an impromptu wine and cheese meeting, yes, at 10 a.m. When these forces collided outside my local boulangerie, it was like watching a particularly French version of a disaster movie. The Great Dane decided to investigate someone's shopping bag, causing them to stumble into the path of the cyclist, who swerved onto the road, causing a car to honk, which made someone drop their wine, which created a small crowd of onlookers who completely blocked the sidewalk. The dog owner never looked up from his phone, the cyclist yelled at everyone within earshot, and the wine droppers turned it into an impromptu street party. I stood there, clutching my morning croissant, and realized I had two choices: laugh or cry. I chose to laugh, but also may have muttered something about typical French chaos loud enough for several people to hear. A nearby woman actually nodded in agreement, though she was probably a tourist. There are so many things I love about living in Paris, but the people and lack of etiquette and sophistication just aren't included in that list. The architecture is breathtaking, the food is incredible, when you can actually get to the counter to order it without being bulldozed by locals, and the history is everywhere you look. But the daily battle of existing in this city among people who seem to have elevated rudeness to an Olympic sport. That's the part they don't tell you about in the guidebooks. I've started keeping a mental tally of my daily encounters: how many sidewalk chickens I've played, current record, 14 in one day, how many off-leash dogs have investigated my shopping bags, average, 3.5 per shopping trip, how many times I've had to dodge motorcycles on the sidewalk, too many to count, and how many times I've caught myself behaving exactly like the locals I complain about. This number increases alarmingly each week. The irony isn't lost on me that I've become what I once despised. Just last week, I caught myself doing the classic Parisian shrug when someone complained about my blocking the entire cheese section at Monoprix. I was channeling Madame Cheese Block herself, and the worst part? I didn't even feel bad about it. Sometimes I wonder if this is all some elaborate social experiment, if somewhere there's a team of sociologists studying how long it takes for a friendly foreigner to transform into a grumpy Parisian. If so, I think I've given them enough data to write several dissertations. But here's the thing, and I hate to admit this, there's a small, probably corrupted part of me that's starting to understand it all. The constant battle for space in a city that's bursting at the seams, the daily defense of your right to exist in public spaces, the gradual hardening of your exterior just to make it through another day of Parisian life. It's like some weird form of urban evolution. Yet despite it all, despite the daily chaos and the gradual erosion of my once pleasant personality, I'm still here. Maybe that makes me as crazy as the locals. Or maybe, just maybe, I've become exactly what I needed to be to survive in this beautiful, infuriating city. A little bit Karen, a little bit warrior, and entirely transformed by the city of light, or as I now think of it, the city of fight. Just don't expect me to be happy about it. Or to move out of your way on the sidewalk. After all, I've earned my place in this chaos.